the obsession, the kiss I couldn't forget. That kiss was amazing. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rushed. And it definitely wasn't innocent. We were just talking, standing close enough to feel each other's presence, but pretending everything was normal. I tried to focus on her words, but my eyes betrayed me. They kept drifting to her lips. I don't know when the conversation stopped making sense. I only know that silence took over. A heavy, dangerous silence. The kind that pulls you in before you realize you're falling. I remember thinking, don't do this. But my body didn't listen. My hand moved first. I held her waist, firm but careful, pulling her just a little closer. Close enough that I could hear her breathing change. Close enough that I could feel her heartbeat. Fast, nervous, alive. When our lips finally touched, the world disappeared. It wasn't just a kiss. It was memory. It was hunger. It was everything I had been denying myself for years. Our lips brushed softly at first, like we were both afraid to admit how much we wanted it. Then slowly deeper, stronger, more honest. I could feel every emotion we never spoke out loud. Time stopped, and in that moment, I forgot everything. I forgot the mansion. I forgot the meetings. I forgot the ring on my finger. All I could feel was her. And that's when the truth hit me harder than any deal I'd ever lost. I was married, but the woman I was kissing wasn't my wife. I pulled back, breathless, my heart pounding like I'd just committed a crime against myself. She looked at me with the same confusion, the same desire, the same pain, because she knew it too. I still remember my ex, not just her face, but her touch, the way she hugged me when I was exhausted, the way her kiss felt like home, not temptation. I missed the nights we stayed awake talking about dreams instead of money. I missed the warmth of her body beside mine when life felt simple. I missed being loved for who I was, not what I became. Now I sleep next to another woman, my wife. She wears my name. She lives in my house. She smiles for the cameras. But every night I feel empty. I stare at the ceiling and wonder how a man surrounded by luxury can feel so alone. I wonder when I stop feeling anything real. I wonder why success feels colder than failure ever did. That kiss reminded me of everything I lost. And worse, it reminded me of everything I still wanted. I told myself marriage would fix the emptiness. That stability would replace passion. That time would erase the past. I was wrong, because obsession doesn't fade just because it's inconvenient. Love doesn't disappear just because it's forbidden. And some memories don't stay buried, no matter how rich you become. That kiss didn't start a mistake. It exposed one. And from that moment on, I knew my perfect life was already breaking apart. People see my name in headlines and think they know me. They call me a billionaire, a genius, a man who won at life. But no one ever asks what I lost to become this man. I didn't grow up with money. I grew up with hunger. Hunger to prove myself. Hunger to escape a life where every dream felt too expensive. When I first started building my company, I slept in my office, survived on coffee, and told myself love could wait. That's when she came into my life. My ex didn't fall in love with my success. I didn't have any back then. She loved the man I was before the suits, before the walls, before I learned how to hide behind confidence. She believed in me when all I had were promises, and I promised her everything. But ambition is selfish. It demands sacrifices, and it never asks for permission. I missed birthdays. I canceled trips. I chose meetings over moments. Every time she asked me to slow down, I told her it was temporary. It'll be worth it, I said. I meant the money. She meant us. The night she left, I told myself it was necessary. I told myself love was a distraction, and success was permanent. I buried the pain under work and never looked back. At least, that's what I pretended. Success came fast after that. Deals closed. Numbers grew. My name started to matter. People listened when I spoke. Doors opened before I even touched them. But the higher I climbed, the quieter my life became. Power isolates you. It makes everyone careful around you. Nobody speaks freely. Nobody touches you without wanting something. You stop knowing who's real and who's performing. That's when I met my wife. She was safe, controlled, impressive. Our relationship didn't start with passion. It started with understanding. She knew the rules of my world. She fit into it perfectly. The board loved her. The press adored her. Together, we looked untouchable. I told myself this was what grown-up love looked like. Predictable, polished, convenient. But deep down, something felt wrong. I didn't miss her when she was gone. I didn't ache for her touch. I didn't feel that dangerous pull that makes your heart forget logic. Still, I married her, because walking away from emptiness feels easier than confronting it. The ring went on my finger. The vows were spoken. Cameras flashed. Everyone congratulated me on having it all. That night, lying beside my wife, I stared into the dark and waited to feel something change. Nothing did. No rush. No peace. No sense of home. Just silence. I convinced myself this was normal. That passion fades. That stability matters more than desire. That love is a choice, not a feeling. But then that kiss happened, and everything I buried came rushing back. It reminded me that I didn't lose my ability to feel. I just locked it away. I didn't stop loving my ex because I moved on. I moved on because I was afraid to love her the way she deserved. And now here I was, successful, respected, married, still craving the one thing money couldn't buy. That kiss didn't just awaken desire. It exposed the truth. I didn't build a life. I built a distraction. And somewhere between ambition and fear, I became a man who had everything except the courage to want the right thing. My wife isn't a bad woman. That's the part that makes this harder. She's kind in the way that's quiet, not loud. The kind of kindness that doesn't demand attention. She remembers the small things, what time I like my coffee, which meetings drain me the most when it give me space. She tries to love me the way she thinks I need to be loved. And maybe that's a problem. Our mornings are calm, too calm. We wake up in a bed big enough for two strangers. She asks about my schedule. I answer. We move around each other with practiced ease, like partners in a routine rather than lovers in a life. Sometimes she reaches for my hand at breakfast. I let her hold it, but my mind is somewhere else. There's no tension, no fire, no fear of losing her that tightens my chest. And I hate myself for noticing that. At night, she leans into me, resting her head on my shoulder. I wrap my arm around her because that's what a husband should do. Her body is warm, familiar, but it doesn't quiet the noise inside me. I tell myself love grows over time. That desire isn't everything. That stability matters more. But in the dark, when she's asleep and I'm wide awake, the truth whispers louder than logic ever could. I feel like I'm living someone else's life. She talks about the future, vacations, renovations, charity events we'll host together. I nod. I smile. I play my part well. I always play my part well. But there are moments when she looks at me a little too long, like she's searching for something in my eyes that used to be there. I wonder if she feels it too. The distance, the absence, the way my body is present, but my heart isn't. She deserves someone who comes home and feels relief, someone who misses her during the day, someone who doesn't need to convince himself that love is enough. I try to be that man. I take her out to expensive restaurants. I buy her thoughtful gifts. I show up when cameras are watching. To the world, we are perfect. But love doesn't live in public. It lives in the quiet moments. And in those moments, all I feel is guilt. Because while my wife plans a life with me, my heart keeps wandering back to a past I never finished grieving. I compare without meaning to. The way my ex laughed without restraint. The way she argued with me, challenged me, made me feel alive, even when we disagreed. With my wife, everything is smooth, too smooth, like a lake with no depth. I start staying later at work, not because I have to, but because it's easier than coming home and facing the truth reflected in her eyes. She asks if something is wrong. I tell her I'm just tired, and she believes me. That's the cruelest part. She believes in the version of me I no longer recognize. Sometimes I catch her watching me when she thinks I'm not looking. There's hope there, patience, love that's waiting for me to meet it halfway. And I wonder, did I marry her because I loved her or because I was afraid of being alone? Then my ex walks back into my life. And suddenly, every excuse I've been telling myself starts to fall apart. Because for the first time in years, I don't feel numb. I feel dangerous, conflicted, alive. And that's when I realize something I don't want to admit. The problem isn't that I don't know how to love my wife. The problem is that my heart already chose someone else. And I never had the courage to tell it goodbye. I didn't go looking for her. That's the lie I told myself at first. The truth is, some part of me always expected her to return, not because the world is small, but because unfinished love has a way of circling back when you're weakest. It was a normal morning, meetings stacked back to back, deadlines, noise, the kind of day where emotions don't belong. Then the elevator doors opened, and there she was. For a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. She stood there calm, confident, completely unaware that she'd just shattered years of control I'd worked so hard to build. She looked different, stronger. There was no hesitation in her posture, no longing in her eyes. That hurt more than I expected. Our eyes met. The world didn't stop, but I did. I felt it in my chest, that familiar ache, sharp and sudden, the kind that reminds you exactly where you failed. She didn't smile. She didn't frown. She just looked at me like someone who had already survived losing me. And that scared me. I found out later she was hired as a consultant. Temporary, professional, neutral, everything I wasn't. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was married, that the past was done, that time had changed us both. But time doesn't erase feelings. It only teaches them how to wait. Our first meeting was torture disguised as professionalism. She spoke confidently, like my opinion no longer defined her world. She didn't avoid my eyes, but she didn't search for mine either. That distance burned. I caught myself watching the way she spoke, the way she moved, the way she carried herself like someone who no longer needed my approval. And somehow that made me want her more. Every interaction felt layered. Every pause felt loud. We talked about numbers and strategies. But beneath every word was history, unspoken questions, old wounds, 1,000 memories pressing against the present. I told myself to keep my distance. Then I started creating excuses not to. I justified it with work, long meetings, late nights, necessary discussions. Each one chipped away at the walls I'd built. And she noticed. One evening, as the office emptied, she stayed behind. So did I. Silence settled between us, thick and familiar. She finally spoke. Are you happy? One question. No accusations. No bitterness. Just truth. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say yes, to prove that leaving her was worth it, that my life made sense, that I hadn't ruined something real for something empty. But the words wouldn't come. That's when I realized something terrifying. She didn't need me anymore. I needed her. Seeing her again didn't reignite old feelings. It exposed the ones that never left, the ones I buried under marriage and money and responsibility. I went home that night and looked at my wife differently, not with love, with guilt, because while she slept peacefully beside me, my heart was somewhere else, waking up. And the worst part, I knew this wasn't a coincidence. This was consequence. Fate wasn't testing me. It was asking me to finally choose. They say distance heals, but proximity? Proximity destroys discipline. I told myself it was temporary, that this project would end and she would walk out of my life again. Clean, controlled, final. That was the plan. Reality had other intentions. We worked closely, too closely. Meetings stretched longer than necessary. Conversations drifted beyond business before either of us stopped them. The more time we spent together, the harder it became to remember why we ever separated. She challenged me the way she always had, sharp, intelligent, unafraid. She didn't treat me like a billionaire or a husband or a man to be handled carefully. She treated me like me, and I didn't realize how much I missed that until it was already pulling me under. I started noticing the smallest things. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. The way her voice softened when she laughed, like she forgot where she was for a second. Those moments felt stolen, dangerous. Every time our hands brushed while passing documents, electricity surged through me. I hated myself for feeling it, and hated myself more for wanting it again. I set rules. No late meetings. No personal conversations. No being alone together. I broke every one of them. One night, we stayed late reviewing projections. The office was quiet, almost intimate. City lights spilled in through the glass walls, painting her face in gold and shadow. She caught me staring. "Do you ever stop thinking?" she asked softly. I smiled, pretending it was about work. But we both knew better. There was a moment, brief, fragile, where neither of us moved, where everything we weren't saying hovered between us, heavy and tempting. I stepped back. I reminded myself I was married. She nodded like she understood, but her eyes told a different story. That night, I went home restless. My wife asked about my day. I answered in half-truths. I felt like a stranger lying in my own bed. The next morning, my ex showed up wearing the same calm distance, but it was cracked now. I could feel it. The tension wasn't one-sided anymore. We weren't just remembering the past. We were circling it. The line between then and now blurred with every shared glance, every laugh that lingered too long. I stopped pretending this was harmless, because obsession doesn't announce itself loudly. It grows quietly until it owns you. I wasn't falling in love again. I never stopped. And deep down, I knew something was coming. Something irreversible. Something that would force the truth out into the open, whether I was ready or not. I just didn't know yet that the moment would come with a single kiss. I should have stopped it. That's the truth I'll live with forever. It happened at the end of a long day. One of those nights when the office feels abandoned, like the world has narrowed down to just two people and their unspoken thoughts. She was gathering her things, ready to leave. I stood there, pretending to review documents, pretending I wasn't counting the seconds before she walked out of the room. She turned to say goodbye, and something in her voice broke me. It was soft, careful, like she was protecting herself from hope. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I just spoke. Wait. She stopped. The silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of everything we'd lost, everything we never finished. Everything we were pretending didn't matter anymore. I stepped closer, not enough to touch her, just enough to feel her. Her breath changed. I noticed because mine did too. I told myself this was the moment I would be strong, that I would say the right thing, that I would finally let her go. Instead, I looked at her lips, and she didn't look away. That was all it took. The kiss was slow, almost hesitant, like we were both asking permission without using words. When our lips met, it wasn't explosive, it was familiar, like coming home to a place you never stop missing. I felt her exhale, felt her relax into the moment we'd been fighting for weeks. The world outside that room disappeared. There was no marriage, no consequences, just two people remembering who they were together. I pulled back first. Reality crashed in hard. I can't, I whispered. Not because I didn't want to, because I wanted it too much. She nodded, eyes shining not with tears, but with understanding that hurt more than anger ever could. I won't be your escape, she said quietly. I won't be the thing you reach for when your life feels empty. Those words stayed with me. That night, I went home and stood in the doorway of my bedroom, watching my wife sleep. She looked peaceful, trusting, safe, and I felt like a fraud, because the kiss didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel alive. And once you remember what that feels like, you can't forget it. I lay beside my wife, staring into the dark, knowing something had changed forever. The lie I'd been living was cracking, and I was running out of excuses to hold it together. That kiss didn't solve anything. It demanded an answer, and deep down I knew what was coming, because you can only betray your heart for so long before it forces you to choose. The kiss followed me everywhere, into meetings, into conversations, into my marriage. I thought time would dull it. That routine would take over again. That guilt would be stronger than desire. I was wrong. Guilt doesn't scream. It sits quietly and waits. My wife noticed the change before I did. She always does. The way I answered her questions a second too late. The way my phone never left my hand. The way my mind drifted even when I was sitting right in front of her. She asked if I was okay. I said yes. Another lie stacked neatly on top of the others. I started coming home later, staying at work longer than necessary. Not because I wanted to see my ex, but because I didn't trust myself not to think about her if I was alone. Distance became my coping mechanism. My wife tried to close it. She planned dinners, asked me to take a weekend off, reached for me in bed like she was afraid I'd disappear if she didn't hold on tight enough. I let her, and every time I did, the weight in my chest grew heavier, because she wasn't doing anything wrong. I watched her sleep one night and realized something terrifying. I could ruin her life, and she'd never see it coming. That knowledge hurt more than the kiss ever did. Meanwhile, at work, the tension with my ex changed. The air between us wasn't charged anymore, it was careful. She kept her distance now. Professional. Polite. It felt like punishment, and I deserved it. Every restrained glance reminded me of what I couldn't have unless I was willing to burn everything else down. She wasn't chasing me. She wasn't waiting. She was protecting herself. That scared me more than rejection, because it meant the next move had to be mine. I started asking myself questions I'd avoided for years. Was I staying in my marriage because I loved my wife, or because leaving would make me the villain? Was I afraid of hurting her, or afraid of being honest about who I really was? Late one night, my wife finally asked the question I'd been dreading. Is there someone else? The room went quiet. I didn't answer right away. That silence said more than any confession ever could. Her eyes filled, not with anger, but with understanding, like part of her had already known and was just waiting for me to catch up. I don't want to fight for someone who isn't here, she said softly. Those words broke something open inside me. Because for the first time, I saw the damage clearly, not as a future possibility, but as something already happening. I wasn't standing at the edge of a mistake anymore. I was standing inside it, and I knew that this story couldn't end with everyone intact. Something had to give, and no matter how I tried to delay it, the truth was already moving toward the surface, quiet, unstoppable, and ready to be seen. Next, the tension turns into confrontation. Once the question is asked, there's no going back. Is there someone else? My wife didn't raise her voice. She didn't accuse. She didn't cry right away. She just stood there, waiting, like she already knew the answer and needed me to finally respect her enough to say it out loud. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. That silence stretched longer than any argument ever could. And it lived every lie I'd told, every truth I'd avoided. Every moment I chose comfort over honesty. She nodded slowly, like my quiet confirmed what her heart had been whispering for weeks. I felt it, she said. The distance. The way you look through me instead of at me. I wanted to defend myself, to explain how complicated it was, how lonely I'd felt, how none of this was planned. But explanations don't undo betrayal. She asked me if I loved her. That question hurt more than the first, because love shouldn't be this hard to answer. I care about you, I said. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't enough. She smiled sadly. That's not the same. And she was right. That night, we talked longer than we ever had during our marriage. Not about blame, but about truth. She admitted she'd always felt like she was competing with something invisible, a ghost she couldn't fight. I didn't say my ex's name. I didn't have to. The room felt heavy with endings. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet acceptance. Two people realizing they tried to build a life on something that never fully existed. She asked me what I wanted. That question terrified me, because wanting something meant taking responsibility for the consequences. I told her I didn't know. Another truth. She didn't cry then. She just looked tired, like someone who had been holding on alone for too long. Then we need space, she said, because staying like this is hurting us both. That night, I slept in the guest room, alone, and for the first time since the kiss, I didn't feel torn. I felt clear that avoidance had only delayed the inevitable, clear that pretending was more cruel than leaving, clear that love, real love, demands courage, not convenience. The next morning, I woke up knowing this wasn't the beginning of a fight. It was the beginning of an ending, and endings, no matter how painful, have a strange way of making room for truth. Truth has a strange way of escaping. You can bury it under routines, under silence, under promises you don't fully mean. But eventually, it finds air. And once it does, it changes everything it touches. The space my wife asked for became real faster than I expected. Her things slowly disappeared from our bedroom. The house grew quieter, colder. Not empty, but honest in a way it had never been before. There were no dramatic fights, no slammed doors, just distance settling in like a final decision. At work, things shifted too. People noticed. They always do. Whispers followed me through hallways. The board asked questions wrapped in concern but sharpened with suspicion. A married billionaire living separately from his wife wasn't just personal. It was news waiting to happen. And then my ex asked to speak with me, not as a colleague, not as a memory, but as a woman who deserved clarity. We met in my office after hours. The city glowed outside, indifferent to the weight inside that room. I can't keep doing this, she said calmly. I won't be the reason you destroy your life or someone else's. I respected her for that. Even now, she told me She never came back for me. She came back for herself, for her career, for closure she thought she'd already made peace with. But seeing you again, she paused, choosing her words carefully. It reminded me why I left. That hit harder than any accusation. Because she was right. She left because I chose ambition over presence. Because I promised a future while neglecting the present. Because I wasn't brave enough to slow down for love. She wasn't asking me to choose her. She was asking me to choose truth. Around the same time, my wife asked for a conversation. One final, honest one. No lawyers. No defenses. We sat across from each other like two people meeting for the first time. She told me she didn't regret marrying me, but she refused to stay married to someone who was only halfway there. I deserve to be chosen, she said, fully. So did my ex, and so did I. That night, I stood alone in the house that once felt like a trophy and realized something undeniable. I couldn't keep living between two worlds. Obsession wasn't love, fear wasn't loyalty, and silence wasn't kindness. The truth was out now, within my marriage, within myself, and soon within the world that watched my every move. There was no going back, only forward. And forward meant letting go of the life I built, to finally become the man I should have been all along. Letting go doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small moments. Signing papers in silence. Sleeping alone in a house that echoes. Realizing no amount of money can protect you from the weight of your own choices. The divorce was quiet, respectful, painful, necessary. My wife deserved honesty long before I gave it to her. But when I finally did, she met it with dignity. She didn't beg. She didn't curse me. She simply chose herself. That's when I understood something I wish I'd learned earlier. Love isn't about possession. It's about presence. I stepped away from the life everyone admired and stood alone for the first time in years. No distractions. No performances. Just truth. Weeks passed. Then months. I didn't chase my ex. I didn't text late at night or show up unannounced. For the first time, I respected her boundary and my own growth, because obsession demands. But love waits. When we finally met again, it wasn't dramatic. No rain, no music, just two people sitting across from each other, older and wiser than before. She looked at me and said, "You're different." I told her the truth. I had to lose everything to learn how to stay. She didn't forgive me immediately. She didn't promise anything. She just listened, and that was enough. We started slowly. Conversations before confessions. Trust before touch. No rushing. Because this time, I wasn't afraid of stillness. I learned to be present. To choose, not escape. To love without hiding behind ambition or fear. And one night, as we sat together in comfortable silence, she reached for my hand, not because she needed me, but because she wanted me. That's when I knew. This wasn't obsession anymore. It was choice. Some love stories don't begin with fireworks. They begin with honesty. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing a feeling. I was building something real. Some kisses are mistakes. Some are memories. And some change the direction of your entire life. I didn't plan the moment. We were standing there months after everything ended, after the divorce, after the silence, after the space we both needed to become ourselves again. There was no tension this time, no guilt, no fear hiding behind desire, just truth. We talked about everything we'd been afraid to say before. About the past we couldn't change, about the pain we caused, about the people we became when we stopped running. She asked me one question. Why now? I didn't answer with excuses. I didn't talk about fate or timing. I said, because now I know how to stay. She looked at me for a long moment, not searching my face, but my intent. Then she stepped closer, slowly, carefully, as if giving both of us one last chance to walk away. I didn't. That kiss wasn't desperate. It wasn't hungry. It was calm, certain. Our lips met the way they should have years ago, not to escape reality, but to choose it. I felt her smile into the kiss, and for the first time, I knew this wasn't about obsession anymore. It was about peace. That kiss didn't take anything from us. It gave us permission. We didn't rush into love. We built it day by day, conversation by conversation, trust replacing fear. And one evening, as we sat together in a quiet room filled with nothing but honesty, I asked her to marry me. No audience, no cameras, no performance, just a promise. She said yes, not because she needed me, but because she believed in the man I'd become. The wedding was small, real, filled with laughter instead of pressure. When I kissed her that day, it felt nothing like the first kiss that started all this. That one was chaos. This one was home. I used to believe love was something you chase until you win it. I was wrong. Love is something you choose after you learn who you are without it. And in the end, it wasn't money, power, or obsession that saved me. It was one honest kiss and the courage to turn it into forever.